Apathy. People want to know about apathy. Someone's been asking me to talk to them about apathy. If you're that apathetic, how come you can even be bothered to ask about apathy? Apathy is the sense that nothing is worth doing, often is an accompaniment to the philosophical position of nihilism, and we live in a purposeless, meaningless, pointless, limitless universe. There's no God. No one cares about us, and the only possible reason for being nice is why not be nice? Be nice because being nice is nice, or something like that. Also, apathy in a less expansive, less philosophical sense can come from the idea that you have no personal authority and autonomy. For example, voter apathy being, well, what's the point in voting? It doesn't make any difference. Although these days, I suppose that's an argument that's less likely to be made now that politics has become so polarized and divisive, although possibly you will find in the areas where people conventionally don't vote that if not attitudes of apathy, then attitudes of disillusionment may abide. It's been said before, I think by the great late Mark Fisher, that what's diagnosed as apathy is often just an understanding that many of the systems of power do not operate at the behest of or on behalf of ordinary people, that ordinary lives will not be meaningly affected by the actions of the political class. Of course, our lives are affected by the actions of the political class, but the variance that can be achieved through democratic means, is not significant. Now, we live at a time where people say, no, it's really, really bad that we're Brexiting or that Donald Trump is president, and we'll be able to cite examples of how that's meaningfully different. But I suppose, as someone that's felt apathetic both spiritually and socially and personally and politically in my own life, I would say, who's who's bounding this vision of what is possible? Who's like that? There is no vision for a truly different world, a world that isn't determined and defined by exchanging your labour for wages, or feeling worthless because you are unable to exchange your labour for wages, or feeling worthless because you cannot purchase commodities, or feeling worthless because you cannot attract a mate, or feeling worthless because you're in a relationship where you do not feel valued and respected, or feeling worthless because you feel that you live in a culture that doesn't reflect your story back to you or include you in its narrative. These are all real problems, aren't they? And I can only see as a solution devolution and personal transformation. Personal transformation, I mean epiphany, conversion to a way of life that is not predicated on material activity. And socially, and when I refer to devolution, what I mean is power being nearer to people, meaning, I suppose, that if you want to live this type of life, sort of whether that's your sexual identity, your political identity, your nationalist identity, your religious identity, whatever form of identity that you're able to, the only way I can see that happening is small, independent, autonomous communities that are entirely free to self-govern and do what they want, except in matters that affect other groups or the planet as a whole. And no one should be forced to remain in those groups if they don't volunteer to be in those groups. It's a complicated idea, but I believe that much of the tension that we're witnessing now is the awakening of people recognizing that their systems don't work for them, and the kind of sense of frustration that meaningful change is not being offered. Now, like, how many of you really would like to be extracted from the reality that you live in and sort of start again, a kind of utopia? If it were possible to press a button and to live in some lush, pastoral world where you were closer to your food sources, where you had the advantages of technology, where you only had to maintain 50 or 100 relationships, where you were in control of how your community was run because it was democratic. People sat in assemblies and went, well, I think we should spend this much time on agriculture, and this much time on technological advancement, and this much time on cultural activity, and this much time with family, and this much time on defence and war, and you know, we'd all do it, wouldn't we? But we have a sense that we're just in some deluge, we're just being carried by a force that doesn't care about us, and the reason it feels like that is because that is what's happening. That is what's happening. It's been happening for a long, long time, and the only way to extract yourself from that is via personal awakening. That's what the point of spirituality is. Spirituality don't need to be some esoteric thing. It's merely the process of awakening from the false belief that the material world can ever deliver you happiness. And I can't remember the next bit of it because that bit seems pretty significant. Believing that change is possible, though, is the first part. I'm afraid sacrifice is probably a big part of this. Terrifying, troubling sacrifice. Am I willing to have less access to material goods? It's all right for me, sat here in a perfectly lovely pair of trainers being filmed by a perfectly lovely camera for you to watch on your perfectly lovely device. Apathy is a response to the irrelevance of personal will. Humility, a positive response to apathy, I would say, is the acknowledgement of our relative insignificance. That's not self-condemning, oh, I'm no good. It's more like, in the general context of limitless nature, limitless phenomena, my individual personal requirements are not that important. Doesn't mean that I'm not beautiful and worthy of giving and receiving love. Just means don't get caught up in some, circuit of self-obsession. So apathy is okay because it's adjacent to humility, and it's that you've understood something, that you're living amidst meaninglessness, deception and corruption. But you can't just live in that. You are personally responsible for changing the world. Hello, I'm doing these new videos more frequently now. Please hit the notification button at the end of this video, because then you'll get like a little bell when I post a new video, and I'd like you to get a little bell when I post a video. Then I can, I don't know, be buzzing away in your pocket. Sounds like I'd be like a little pocket mosquito. Anyway, subscribe, click the bell, because I want more people to watch the YouTube videos. You specifically.